I'm live. Hi, Cindy. That's great. I already have 2 people joining me. All right. Well, today I was thinking of what I was going to talk about, and I came up with a couple things. While I wait for people to join, I'm just going to talk about some various things. I got my order from Everything Ribbons on Etsy. Let me show you guys that. There we go. I ordered a bunch of things from them. So they're also known as I Craft for Less, and I think they sell on Amazon too. But I think Amazon kind of takes a bigger margin from people, so I just I like to order from them on Etsy. Not that they're free or anything, but I just feel like the terms are better for sellers. But I got this cotton webbing, and if you're unfamiliar, webbing comes in different widths and fiber contents. This is 1.25 inches wide. I needed this for a specific project. It's just like, they said it's coral. It feels like neon orange to me, but I guess they're kind of one and the same. And this cotton webbing I'm going to make for the key fobs I talked about last week. They make webbing out of like nylon or polypropylene as well. But that's the stuff, it's like dog leashes are usually made out of it, and it just feels icky. Like I wouldn't want that on my shoulder, especially if I'm wearing something sleeveless. So I just like the cotton better, and it comes in so many colors. And then I got more of this key fob hardware. Hey, J. Wilson Creations. Glad to see you. I'm just showing this order that I got from Everything Ribbons on Etsy that I talked about last week while I wait for people to join us. I posted a link to this live stream in a couple of sewing groups and on a Discord server. And I even told my mom to join me because that'd be hilarious. But I need to work on posting it further in advance. I was got off to a slow start today. So anyway, this is the key fob hardware. Oh, hey, Julie. Hey, Lysandra. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like them. Eventually, I'm going to get really good at this. So, and then I got some D-rings too. I don't use these terribly often, but I was running out, and they sell those there. They don't sell like a whole range of bag hardware, just a few things. And then the key fob pliers that I showed you last week, the tip on one of them is kind of, this thing, it kind of tears up eventually, so you can buy replacements. So I got that too. And then, one thing, I put stuff in the description, a whole bunch of links to things that I'm planning on talking about. But one thing I didn't mention, and I think I have before, if you guys are into 18-inch dolls, like American Girl dolls or Our Generation, whatever, there's a site called Pixie Fair, and Fair has an E at the end.com. And you should get on their mailing list. They also have knitting and crocheting patterns too, if you're into that. But they have a Friday freebie. And but it's only on there for 24 hours. So that's why I'm telling you to sign up now. Here's an example. This was yesterday's freebie. And isn't this the cutest thing? Oh, it's from the shop. It's on Etsy, and they're called Everything Ribbons. They're based out of Florida, and that's where I currently am. So they come real fast, and they have a huge selection of stuff. I like them. I've ordered from them a ton. But yeah, it's this little panda wristlet, and you can see it's 18-inch doll size. But even if you're not into making these dolls, they have all these little doll size handbag patterns on there. And would this not be the cutest thing, like to like clip onto like a human size handbag? Oh, so cute. So I might end up doing that. I don't know. So anyway, they do Friday freebies are weekly. I get in their mailing list. They also do it. The same company. They have this program called So Powerful, where it's SEW, and I've been meaning for like the last 2 years to make something for it. what it is, it's a program. It is faith-based, but you don't have to like be religious to be part of it. But what they're doing is, oh shoot, Zambia, that's the country. I was like, oh, that'd be useful if you knew the country. So in Zambia, they have a program there where there was a problem with young girls not being able to afford menstrual products. And as a result, they couldn't go to school while they're having their cycle. So what they're doing is they started a program there where they taught and they're actually building, I think they built them like a facility and stuff, like a building, and they're teaching women in the, I think it's just one village, I think. Yeah, go to the website if you want more information. But in a nutshell, they're teaching women in the village who are interested how to sew, and then they're sewing reusable menstrual pads for the girls because they're cheaper and they're better for the environment. And then what people around the world do is they will make these purses, and they have a specific pattern. There's actually 2 versions that you can get from So Powerful. And you can sew these purses, and they're for the girls to carry their menstrual supplies in. So it's really cool, and I like it because it's not like overly like, it's not like paternalistic in nature, like, oh, you poor like less than people in this country, let's give you some stuff because you don't know what you're doing. It's not like, at least in my impression, it's not like that at all, where it's really like, hey, we see a need here and we want to help you guys, but we still want to respect your way of life. Having said that, though, I'm assuming they probably like do some sort of like preaching, like, hey, join our church or whatever too. But anyway, take the information for what you will. But anyway, so you can sell these purses and then ship them, and then they go over and then they hand them out. And then, yeah, like they've gotten Baby Lock to donate sewing machines. And then what it is it creates a source of income, because the village is poor for the most part. And it creates a source of income for these women because they can take the sewing skills and do whatever they want with them. But then they're making these pads for them, these girls' education. So that's what I like about it, where it's, you're giving them some help, but still, respecting them as humans and respecting like their way of life and everything like that. So anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but anyway, so I think I'm going to get started on the main thing I want to talk about today. Sorry about that little notification. What I want to talk about is, and I'm going to make a separate video about this, but I want to talk about it during this live video because I want to get people's opinions and perspectives. But the main thing, and you can see it in the title of the live stream, is basically who should sew. It's a really, really broad topic, but I mean, I've been thinking about this for as long as I've been sewing. I started sewing, I was 11. My mom taught me how to use a sewing machine. And then I sewed my fingers. I stopped for a while, and then I had home ec in high school, and I sewed in there, and then they were so picky. Like, you had to follow the pattern exactly to the letter and stuff. I'm like, well, what if I want to do this a different way? What if I want to change the length of this skirt? What if I don't want 2 rows of elastic? What if I want to just try using 1 row? Anyway, so then I stopped sewing for a while too. I'm like, this wasn't fun. And when I was around 20 years old, and full disclosure, this is the late 90s, I went to a fabric store with my mom, and I saw these really colorful, pretty fabrics, and I really got inspired. So I'm like, I'm going to pick up sewing again. So I knew how to sew, like how to use a sewing machine. And my mom had made clothes a little bit when I was younger, but she was more into like patchwork quilts and stuff. So I pretty much had to be self-taught because this is obviously well before YouTube, and there wasn't a whole lot on the internet at that point. Gosh, I'm sounding like ancient when I'm saying this, but it's necessary. So I was really self-taught, and what I was noticing, it was so weird that most of the time I go to the fabric store, and I was the youngest person there by a lot. Like, what is going on? Like, this is a fun hobby. Why aren't more people my age doing this? And why am I getting funny looks when I go in there? And And, and why aren't I seeing more fabrics that are cool? So, and fast forward now to 2021, and we actually do have more diversity in who is sewing. The types of fabrics are more plentiful, and it's gotten a lot better, but I feel like there's a ton of room for improvement. So that's what I wanted to ask you guys all about. So as I'm talking about this, I really encourage you to add your thoughts in the chat. Like if you think what I'm saying is ridiculous, go ahead and tell me, and tell me why. Or if you agree, or if you have some other point that I'm not considering, I really genuinely want to hear it. I'm not going to be like, hey, you're an idiot. Unless you're the guy from last week who comes back and tells me to go back into the kitchen, you're an idiot. But Icy's probably gone. He probably found someone else to troll. That was funny though. But so here's a couple things. Like I try to keep this spontaneous. But I was kind of jotting down a few notes as I was getting ready to go live here. And I was watching By Annie's live stream. I think that was on Thursday, and she had a gentleman on as a guest. His name is Scott Fortunoff, and I linked his blog down in the description below. And who he is the owner of a company called Jaftex, and they own a whole bunch of fabric companies. So I don't know if he actually sews himself, but he's a businessman, and that's that's his thing. But he owns Free Spirit, so that's the company that that distributes and manufactures Tula Pink's fabrics. So that's where most of you are gonna know them from. Art Gallery Fabrics, Studio E, Henry Glass. There's a whole bunch of fabrics. So what they do basically is they go find fabric companies that are either in trouble of closing or just want to sell, like maybe the owner's retiring, and they just go and buy them and then continue that on. Like, so it's a good thing. Obviously it's not like it's not like a charity or whatever, and I'm not saying it's bad that it isn't, but that's what he does. He goes and funds these brands that are either struggling or about to close down. So he's like right in the sewing industry. So he has a blog where he talks about the sewing industry. And one of his posts recently was, "Where are my male sewists at?" And I read it, and I wasn't like wild about like how he wrote it. I kind of feel like he probably means well, but it kind of seemed like I kind of felt like he was belittling females sewing, but I don't think he meant it that way. But he had a good point, and some of the comments were mentioning that like men were commenting saying, "Hey, I sew, and I've had outright hostility from women sewing. Like I come into the quilt shops and they're basically like, get the hell out of here. Like, what are you doing? This is our space." And I think that's really not, I don't like that at all. It's fine like if you don't want to sew with other men, but should we really be like pushing them away? So Julie's saying, totally agree. I use crafting as an outlet for stress. I'm a caregiver of my husband who has lupus. Oh wow, that's hard. I think a lot of younger people would benefit from something like sewing. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that the proliferation of YouTube videos is helping with that. It seems like it is. And then also the pandemic, which is keeping a lot of us at home when some of us usually have hobbies that take us out of the home. So we need to find more things we can do in our houses. So I'm hoping that more young people pick it up. And I think a lot of the things I'm talking about today would kind of help that, as far as like making people feel welcome in sewing spaces or whatever. So yeah, I feel like he had a real point. And then that reminded me that I have a great uncle. His name is Oliver Schulteis. He passed in 1996, but he actually was an avid quilter. And I remember a couple of years before he passed, going with my mom. It was some sort of like local show where they had all his quilts on display that he had made over time. And I was thinking, well, this is really cool. Why don't more men do this too? Like, why is this only for women and only women of a certain age? Why? So, and again, this was back in the mid-90s, and luckily it's changed a lot since then. But I asked her before I came live, like, because I had forgotten, like, how did he get into quilting? And she said that he had been in an auto accident and couldn't walk for a long time. So his mother taught him how to sew and make quilts. So, and then it ended up being a lifelong hobby for him. Like, how awesome is this? So I think he had a career in education, if I remember correctly. So I like to think he was a supporter of all the home ec programs back then. And I know one of his daughters, she got a master's degree in family consumer science home ec sort of thing, and she taught it for many years, and she's now since retired. So it's cool. Like he passed on the value of sewing and quilting and things like that. So I thought that was really cool. And then she also added too that her father was his brother, and her father was the one who taught her how to do the ties. Because I've since noticed it's a less common form of quilting. Because normally people like do like the actual stitched quilting, and she does hers where she does the patchwork and then she does these yarn ties, so it's like a tied quilt. So anyway, he's the one who taught her how to do that. So I thought that was really cool. So it just goes to show like sewing should be for everyone, and that's gonna be the whole point of what I'm talking about today. You know, because a lot of times, like even my husband, like he makes fun of me. He's like, "Oh, you have old lady hobbies." I'm like, "Really? Do I though?" You know, and if so, why? Like, what makes this an old lady hobby? Like, I think it's just, you know, it's a stereotype that's not serving us or the industry well at all. So, you know, I was thinking like, well, you know, why should someone care? You know, if you're sewing, that's great. Why do you care who else is sewing? And I was thinking of a few reasons for that. First of all, the more people who sew, even if they don't do it avidly, it's spreading awareness and of the fact that this is a very highly skilled trade, hobby, career, what have you. Like, it shows the value in it, because I think some people think that what we do as sewers is just no big deal. Like, you see that a lot. Like, there's an Instagram account called Can You, asking them to sew stuff for them and saying, oh, it's no big deal, you should just want to do this, or I'll pay you $5 to sew a prom dress, that kind of thing. And I think the more people who have some exposure to sewing, even if it's like they know someone who does, the more what we do is going to be valued by other people. And then for people who want to perhaps make an income from sewing, they can more easily charge the wage that they deserve and that they're worth. Lysandra is saying, a shop owner for my local quilting store where I bought my machine said the pandemic has really revived sewing industry. Yeah, I've seen that too. I started with masks and now have 2 machines and love bag making. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Welcome to the fun. It's so great. And that's the thing too. Like, if there's one decent thing that's come out of this horrible pandemic, it's that more people are sewing. So, and even if they decide that they don't want to do it long term, at least those people are going to understand the importance of it. Maybe they might advocate that schools start teaching it more again, and they'll at least, you know, respect the amount of effort and knowledge and talent that we all have as people who sew. The other thing too, that, you know, it's just a matter of simple economics. The more people who are sewing, they're going to be buying more fabrics, more sewing machines, more notions, more sewing related products. So that means they're going to be more widely available. And a lot of times prices go down, because if you're manufacturing a larger amount of something, the price tends to go down. And then we have more competition, that drives prices down. So we all benefit. It's really great. And then the people who buy the stuff and then they go and sell it on Facebook Marketplace or wherever, people like us can go pick it up and get a deal. So if it's someone who buys a great sewing machine, uses it twice, and we go pick it up for half of what they paid for it, that's a win for us. So, you know, there's always something there. And, you know, and really, who's hurting by learning to sew? Even if you just learn a few basic skills, you win. So not only we have men's sewing, we have there's even a channel, a gentleman named Rob Appel who has a channel on here on YouTube called Man Sewing. That's great. I mean, if that's what it takes to bring more people into sewing, that's fine. If there's a man who's interested in sewing, he's like, oh, I don't want to watch that lady teach me how to sew. I want a man to teach me whatever. It's kind of dumb, but still, they're still buying fabrics, and that's a good thing. And plus, that person might have a different perspective that we hadn't thought of. So, and the other thing I thought was weird too, is that the people who do automotive upholstery, almost all men. And that pays a ton. Like, and I was kind of wondering, like, could that possibly be related? Like, since a man's doing it, it's suddenly it's seen as a more valuable skill, So then I'm thinking, like, maybe I should be doing some auto upholstery. But just kind of something I thought of. But it's great though, because over the last few years too, we're starting to see a little more diversity in the sewing community. Not that it wasn't there in the first place, but people are noticing it more. And I made a list, and I have links below in the description of different examples of people. Like, first of all, we have Mr. Domestic, who is a gay man who does sewing. So that's wonderful. We have a lot of young people. So we have Lauren Mormino, Dana Willard from Made Every Day, Jess from Okla Roots, Crafty Gemini, Sarah Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Then we have Mimi G from Mimi G Style. She's been around for a long time, and she's like a bona fide influencer now with sewing. And then it's also great we have like ethnic and racial diversity too. Like Mimi G is of Puerto Rican descent. Crafty Gemini is her family's from the Dominican Republic, so we have a Latina there. We have Erica Bunker. She is Lysandra is giving us another example. Good. Erica Bunker is a Black woman who does these real like high end, like super like bougie outfits. I've been following her for a number of years. I kind of stopped following blogs for a while, but she has like, wow, like she's got some good photography and stuff. Like she like really elevates the craft. Like no one's like, oh, that looks Becky Homeki or whatever. Like it is like quality stuff. Another person who's really cool, her name's Renee. She goes by Miss Seeley's Pants. She has an Instagram. I don't think she updates her blog very often anymore, but that's where I had come to know her. Another awesome person. Jacinta Green. Her business name is Pink Mimosa. She's a young Black female, and she actually has created a list of like craft related businesses run by either women, people of color, allies, etc. So that's a cool thing. Let's see. Alessandra is suggesting Blue Pond Avenue, a channel by young African American female bag maker. Oh, that's cool. I gotta write that down. So Blue Pond Avenue. And then Julie said there's a YouTube channel called The Marine Quilter. I'm going to be checking all these out later. Oh, yeah, and Rob, he's also affiliated with Missouri Star Quilt Company. And that's a woman-owned business, so that's cool. But also, I mean, because I'm not like saying like women of a certain age shouldn't have no place in quilting. I'm definitely not saying that. I feel like I shouldn't have to specify that, but you know how the internet is. But she's actually taken that business, and her son kind of helped her with the marketing, like getting her tutorials online. And if you're not familiar with their story, there's a bunch of YouTube videos about them. But they basically like took over this whole town that they were from that was really economically depressed, and now it's a tourist destination. It's just like comprised of tons and tons of fabric shops. Oh yeah, Rob. Yeah, I remember. I haven't watched a lot of his videos, but the ones I have watched, I do remember like they're very upbeat and fun. So I think a lot of times even like despite like it doesn't necessarily matter like what the person looks like who's giving you the message, is how they're delivering it and how you respond to it. So so that's why I think like sometimes like me myself, I think like, oh, why should I make videos about stuff that's already been covered by other people? And a lot of times it's just like who you kind of gel with. And it's not saying like some other person like they suck or whatever. It's just, you know how it is. It's just some people like you just kind of, you're just more drawn to than others. And you know, I'm first person to be like, hey, I'm not for everyone. So, and neither is anybody else. So yeah, so there's a lot of diversity in here, and it's great, and I just think like we need to encourage that. So, you know, so we have young people, we have people of color, we have males, you know, just every walk of life, and that's what I really feel like we need more of in sewing. You know, it shouldn't just be like when someone thinks of sewing that they think of a retired old white lady, you know, like making like dopey looking Little House on the Prairie dresses, because that's always the image that I grew up with, and I just think that's a real disservice. um yeah, so I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, another thing too, it's kind of minor, but I kind of think it's cool, like all those people with sewing tattoos and stuff. Because another thing, it's like just kind of like another stereotype smasher. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen. I don't think I've ever shown it fully on camera. But see, I got a sewing tattoo. Like even old ladies compliment me on this, but and I've seen a lot of people online like sharing that they have sewing tattoos. And I'm like, yes, more of this, please. Lysandra says, agree, it is who you gel with, but also each person's a different insights, helpful hints, and resources. Yeah, absolutely, especially since so many of us were self-taught. So, you know, it's not like all of us went to the exact same like sewing school and learned the same curriculum and the same time period in the same way. So as a result, we all have just different experiences and ways we learn things. And if you're self-taught, you may have figured out a way of doing something that's different. It may be better, or just maybe a way that someone else finds easier to do that way. Oh yes, Julia's saying, how else can you get an awesome lookalike Coach purse if you can't afford the real one and put your own twist on it? Absolutely, yes. Oh, that reminds me too. I found it looks like a blog, and then they have an email list. It's called Sew Modern Bags, and I apologize, I forgot to put a link to them in the description. It's Sew Modern Bags, and sew is spelled SCW. I'll forgive them for the pun, but they have a list of, it was like 300 different free sewing patterns. Most of them I already knew about, but that's because I'm like super into bags. But even I saw several on there that I went and put on my Pinterest boards to check out later. But it was great. But I saw on their thumbnail, they had a photo of a Birkin knockoff bag. I need to go on their blog and hunt for that pattern, because I just think that would be hilarious to make a Birkin knockoff. What is it? Who makes the Birkin? I think it's Hermes. Yeah, like super high end. If you're not into that stuff, it's a bag that's like 5 figures and up, and people collect them, and they actually are investments. Like they go up in value, and there's wait lists to buy them. And I saw once in a video that Drake, if you don't know who Drake is, he's a rapper. Drake has a huge collection of Birkin bags to give to his future wife, who last I knew he didn't have identified yet. Just like, someday I'm going to marry someone and I'm going to give her all these Birkins. Like, how cool is that? You know, and if someone's going to pay that much for a Birkin, you know, they should at least pay us a few hundred for a Nikki or whoever's making them. All right, let me check here. Let me make sure I don't forget anything I wanted to share with you guys. Oh, another kind of related tangent to, it's another sort of related. is so I'm in a group, and I apologize in advance. Hope I don't get demonetized, but it's called Sewing and Shit. It's a Facebook group. They're also on Discord. It's a little less active, I just think, because most people have not heard of Discord. But it's a really cool site or cool Facebook group for people who are just not like overly like uptight and a little bit more tolerant of people who are not like don't like fit the mold of sewing. And it's funny because every couple days lately someone's like, oh, I got kicked out of a sewing group again because I had the audacity to tell someone that something that they said, like they disagreed with someone is really how best to characterize it. So it was really funny. Like it's like the sewing Karens of like they're everywhere. There's Karens everywhere. We have sewing Karens. We have all kinds of like Karens everywhere. And like, I think they're doing a disservice to everybody, and like groups like that. I'm just like, bye. Don't need this. Julie's asking, what was the site for the panda bag? Let me hold this up. I think people kind of come and go on. So this is the pattern that Julie was referring to, and I bought you can buy this on. Sorry, I got to prove a comment. There we go. Cindy likes that group too. The site where you can get this is pixiefair.com, and fair has an E at the end. So it's pixiefair, all one word with an E at the end.com. And then this particular bag, it was free, but they only do the freebies for 24 hours. But if you get on their mailing list, you can get whatever their next freebie is. And again, this is designed for like to be a purse for an 18-inch doll, but the size is perfect to hang like on a human size bag. So like don't write off that site if you're not into making stuff for American Girl dolls, because it's cool. They have so many little bags like that. It's adorable. That took me less time than I thought to go over. Does anyone have any questions for me? Like, it doesn't have to be on this topic either. Like, I usually have people wondering about various things, and I'm always happy to help. Sorry, let me adjust a little bit. All right, well, if anyone has questions, type them in. I'll watch the chat. But there's the other thing I almost forgot. Blue Calla has a new free pattern out. Let me take it out of this page protector so it doesn't glare. But here it is. It's the Larkspur tote bag. I put a link in the description to Blue Calla site. If you don't know about her patterns, first of all, they're excellent. I never met one that I didn't like, and I've probably made about half of the patterns that she has. They're wonderful. And this is the latest one that is totally free. It's a pretty sizable bag. It's 14 by 14, and that's 5 inches deep. So this is a sizable bag. So it's if you have a big fabric stash, this would be a good way to get rid of some of it. I do not, so it'll be a while before I get around to making this bag, but I was excited because I love her patterns. I've made a ton of them, and I actually have on my channel, I have a YouTube video where I just laid out on my sewing table back here all the Blue Calla patterns that I've made that I still had, and just kind of did a show and tell. And she has a whole bunch of other free patterns too. I think I showed the Sweet Pea a couple weeks ago on a live. That's also a free pattern of hers, and it's a smaller size. But yeah, very highly recommend her. And also, if you happen to be in Canada or don't mind paying a little extra for shipping, she sells supplies too. She sells like zipper tape and zipper pulls, and then some fabrics. I think she might sell cork and interfacing. I don't recall. But anyway, for the patterns, though, they're PDFs, so it doesn't matter where in the world you are. And then she has a Facebook group, and she has a coupon code on there. So the patterns, I think most of them are $8 Canadian. I don't know what the exchange rate is, but in any case, it's very reasonable, and they are just so well done. Just excellent patterns. And she's a really cool person too. I like her, and she has a lot of video tutorials for her bags. So especially the newer ones, I think it's kind of. I think there's videos for that Larkspur too. I think she's kind of getting into that because I've noticed over the past few years, like just video in general has gotten very popular. Hence the reason why we're all here right now. But I think a lot of people just prefer that learning style. And I know sometimes I even struggle with it too, like just reading a paragraph of instructions. Sometimes I'll kind of skip over parts of it. And then I'm like, oh, what did I do? Oh, I skipped an entire step. So I think a lot of people like someone just showing them step by step how to do something and following along. So I think that's another thing too that's going to help with inclusiveness in sewing too, because if you have people who don't have high reading comprehension, or maybe just maybe they have a learning disability, like they have dyslexia, or there are a lot of different learning disabilities that make it hard for people to interpret written instructions. So having patterns with video tutorials along with it, I think that's going to be another great way to bring more people into sewing world. All right, Julie's asking, when making bags, do you prefer cotton quilt fabric? I have quite a bit of outdoor fabric that I was going to use for bags. Then I won't have to use as much stabilizer. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of a varied answer. There's certain bags where they recommend a heavier weight fabric. So an outdoor fabric might be really good for them. What comes to mind is a lot of the noodle head patterns. She makes a lot of like backpacks and totes that are kind of more like clean lines and fewer seams. They're kind of bigger in size, so like large scale prints work for them. I've made her range backpack, and that calls for a canvas fabric. Her making backpack as well, but she's got a whole bunch of tote bags also. So that would be a good place to check for patterns that work well for the outdoor that you have. And then yes, generally a heavyweight fabric like that, noodle head. Yeah, it's a weird name. I don't know, but yeah, that's her name is Anna Graham, and yeah, the name of her business is Noodlehead. I don't know. It's probably noodleheadpatterns.com. But if you Google it, you can definitely find it. And she has, of course, Facebook group and Instagram, everything else. But yeah, so anyway, a lot of those heavier fabrics, you don't need to use like a fusible woven interfacing on the back because they're enough. And I think that's why also waterproof canvas has been really trendy lately for bag linings. I know you can kind of see there's a roll of black, there it is. Yeah, right here. This is waterproof canvas. I just got that from Amazon. You can get it from fabric.com, Fabric Wholesale Direct. There's probably other places too. But yeah, I think that's why waterproof canvas has been really trendy lately too, because you don't have to use interfacing. And then plus waterproof fabric has some obvious advantages to it as well. I think it'd be really good for diaper bags or lunch bags. I've used it a little bit. I just mostly wanted to try it out. And then I made a camera bag for my husband where I use it for the exterior. And then it's good if he gets caught out in the rain, his camera won't get wrecked. But yeah, as far as fabrics for bags, I do prefer using quilt cottons just because there are so many awesome prints available. And one thing that I have noticed throughout the years, my mom still does not agree. My mom is very, very frugal because she buys her fabric at like Walmart or like other like mass retailers, where if you don't know the difference between, like, if you haven't felt like a quilt shop quality quilt cotton, like the ones from Free Spirit, like the Tula Pinks and things like that, you might not realize the difference. But when you work with a fabric like that, the stuff from the chain stores just feels like really crappy. Like it's not as soft, it's thinner, it doesn't wear as well, it's not as durable because it's a lower price. So some people get really defensive about that sort of thing. um, like they're thinking because someone's like stating a fact that quilt shop quality fabric is better, like that somehow we're like, and you should not be sewing, and you are wrong, and your stuff sucks, and you suck, and everything else. People get really defensive, I've noticed. Like, well, I just use what I can afford. I'm like, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, this is better quality. And if you can't afford it, highly recommend. It's awesome. You know, my thing is that I would rather buy quality fabric if I'm going to spend the amount of time that I spend on making a project like a bag, especially if it's something that I'm going to sell or give as a gift. Because I've had stuff made with like mass, like retail or lower quality fabric, and I've had like it's gone threadbare, like after a few years of use. So I mean, if you're okay with that, whatever. But that's what I think. But I also do use vinyls. You can see those in the background right there. I've got rolls of them. Most of those are from My Punk Embroidery, which I have a link to in the description in this video and pretty much every other one. They're great. I like that you can just buy a smaller amount, but I've also purchased from marinevinylfabric.com, and they are good if you want a larger amount, because I think they do sell narrower rolls like that now because they've noticed that there's a market for it. But you can get a traditional like wide 1 yard piece or more of marine vinyl from them, and a lot of times it ends up being cheaper, just depending on like how much you're buying, because you have to take into account shipping as well. And then sometimes, depending on what you buy from them, sometimes it's cheaper to buy it from them on Etsy than their regular .com. So shop around. If you're in the market for marine vinyl, like look at all those different places. It's basically the same stuff. I mean, marine vinyl is marine vinyl. My Punk Embroidery does have a promo line where it's a little bit thinner of a vinyl, and I think it's just a matter of preference. It's a little thinner, so if you have a machine that's like I'm trying to think of the way to put it, like a lower price machine, sometimes those have a hard time sewing through like really thick fabrics, and you might have a better time with it. Is that the type of vinyl people use for embroidery? Yes, it is. Yeah, there's different types of vinyl. It's actually a good thing to bring up, just as a good PSA, because heat transfer vinyl is becoming really popular lately. People buying a lot of the Cricut and Silhouette machines, and once in a while I see people online getting the two mixed up. Heat transfer vinyl is for heat transfer. It's a very thin material. Maybe in a future video, because I have some over there. I just don't want to like run over there and grab it because that would be boring for you guys to watch. Maybe in a future video I'll kind of hold them up so you can see the difference. But it's very thin, and like it's it's very drapey. That's for heat transfer. This is screen print, but people use it for t-shirts and things like that. And then marine vinyl, that was originally manufactured for like marine boat upholstery, but obviously we've found lots of super fun uses for it. But yeah, that's the vinyl I've used for embroidery. So these little charms that I showed you guys last week, let me grab one real quick if you were not here last week. These right here, and I am going to be making a standalone video showing how to make these. So if you are intrigued and have an embroidery machine of any kind, you can make these. I will show you how. I got the permission from Parker on the Porch, the designer of this design, to make a video tutorial on it. So I'm probably going to do that today, and then hopefully get it posted either later today or tomorrow. But yeah, it's fun stuff to work with. So, and then My Punk Embroidery has a lot of specialty vinyl types where they have glitter. So you can see like this. This is like this is also like a marine vinyl, like they'll use for upholstery. I've seen like retro style diners that'll use this for their seats. So you can kind of see it's smooth on the top and shiny. So the glitter is kind of like embedded in there, like you can't feel it. It's a smooth texture. So then you're not getting bits of glitter like all up in your sewing machine or your embroidery machine. So I think I might wrap things up if you guys don't have any other questions or anything else. I do want to say though, if you're not already subscribed, that would be really wonderful if you would hit the subscribe button, because then I will come up in on your subscription feed on YouTube. And then also, if you want to be notified of future videos, there's a little bell icon next to where it says subscribe. So that might be great too, because then it'll give you a little reminder when I'm going live, and you remember to join me in the future. And then I've been trying to do more, but I do like occasional tutorials. I do stuff on machine embroidery. And then also I've been doing a little bit more of sewing as well. And then sometimes I do general crafts, just basically anything that involves me using my hands and or machinery to make stuff that's that involves some kind of fabric. I'm all for it. I think I might even get into quilting soon. Who knows? And then if you want to hit the thumbs up there, that helps a lot too. So I won't get into YouTube algorithms. That's boring. But yeah, I see we got some thumbs up already, and I really appreciate that a lot. So last call if anyone has any questions or anything. Julie's saying, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Love your lives. I haven't been actively sewing for that long, and you're very helpful. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I love helping people out. There's a lot of information out there, but there's also a lot of misinformation. And those are the types of things I'm going to be covering more of in the future. One other thing I'm noticing lately in a lot of the sewing groups is there seems to be a lot of people who have this misnomer that you need an industrial sewing machine to make bags, and you do not. And I don't know why I'm getting so annoyed by this, because it's none of my business what other people do with their money. But I'm like, why? I'm like, I guess if you have a couple $1,000s available to you and you want to use it for an industrial sewing machine, that's fine. But I don't want people to think that they have to. And then I would say most of us probably don't have that kind of money readily available to spend on something that we may or may not actually need to have. But if you get like the $80-some machine, like a Brother machine from Walmart, that is going to be limiting. You're not going to be able to do a whole lot of vinyl stuff on that because the motor isn't very strong. But most domestic machines can make most kinds of bags, and you don't have to use vinyl bags if you're just working with like quilting cotton and some interfacing and stuff. You're fine. You don't need these expensive sewing machines. If you're really into it and like want to make a business out of it or whatever, or want to do auto upholstery, then maybe then you can upgrade and get an industrial sewing machine. But just because your favorite YouTuber has one does not mean that you need one. So ironically, it's a sewing chat and you can't see my sewing machine in the video, but I have I have a couple of sewing machines. I've been sewing for a while. But the one that I use is a Juki. It's a TL 2010Q, and I paid $950 for it new. And it has, the only thing I've had trouble with is I tried sewing through about 8 layers of marine vinyl, and that was a no-go. I had to use some upholstery thread and sew that seam by hand. Well, just don't sew 8 layers of marine vinyl and you are fine. Yeah, pleated marine vinyl pockets. Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. But yeah, so that's the thing. Like I want people to feel like, and that's a good tie-in to what I was talking about today. I want people to feel like there are not that many barriers to starting to sew. You know, you don't have to know everything right off the bat, but also do make sure that you know, they all say do your research. You know, don't just take my word for it or someone else's word for it. Get a variety of reliable information and just start. You know, that's the thing. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, you have a sewing machine, it's very useful, and so you make a bag and it turns out like crap. So what are you really out? You're out a little bit of money for supplies. You're out a little bit of time, but really not, because you learned during that process. You got experience and practice. So my whole thing is just do it. So Sandra is asking, what needle do I typically use for bags, denim or Microtex? I just use like the regular ones. This is the one that I've been using most often. I heard Microtex are good, and I think I will give them a try. And again, this is another good example of like, don't just take one person's word for it, because the Microtex needles might be better and maybe I should try them. But these are just organ needles. I use Schmetz too, but these are cheaper and they work well. This is just a 9014, just regular sewing needle, and this is what I use for almost everything. So yeah, just go ahead and experiment. Sometimes you need a bigger needle if you're using a lot of thicker fabrics. But yeah, needles are relatively cheap too, so don't worry about it. Just give one a try. Try whatever you have on hand for your project. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then try another one. Just remember not to pull your fabric. Like, let the feed dogs in your machine do the work so you don't have broken needles. That tends to be a common cause of it. Like, you're pulling, of course that needle's going to break. So, all right, I think I'm going to call it for the day. We covered a whole lot of stuff, and you guys have been so wonderful. You've been great company. I appreciate all the comments you guys have made and all the thumbs up. It's wonderful. I look forward to this every week. I'm going to be doing this every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the foreseeable future, because it's just become part of my weekly routine. I really like it, and I like talking to you guys. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.